Now, to discuss this further, we are being joined by William Courtney from Washington, D.C. He is an adjunct senior fellow at RAND Global think tank. Mr. Courtney, thank you so much for joining us here on WION. My first question to you is straight. The fall of Avdiivka, is it symbolic or strategic?
It is a little bit of both. It's useful to remember that since 2014, Russian troops have controlled much of two eastern regions in Ukraine, Luhansk and Donetsk. And so Avdiivka and before that Bakhmut have both been cities that are in those regions. And so Russians have had a long time to prepare for that. They are not the most strategic cities, though. So overall, what we're seeing is a stalemate, really, in the ground fight. But as your reporter pointed out, in the naval fight, Ukrainians are really on the offensive. They've been sinking quite a few, I think up to a third of the Black Sea big warships that Russians have, and they've driven a number of the others to the eastern part of the Black Sea. And then in the air, neither side has been able to achieve air superiority over the other because ground-based air defenses have been so effective. Looking ahead, the Europeans have just unlocked $50 billion of support for Ukraine. And here in Washington, with perhaps assistance of the death of Alexei Navalny, Congress may soon pass assistance for Ukraine.
Mr. Courtney, I would quickly interject. Speaking of aid, do you think one of the reasons Avdiivka fell was because of the lack of Western supply of weapons to Ukraine? And also, do you think that the reason could cost Volodymyr Zelensky more cities?
The shortage of ammunition certainly has had an impact. Russian forces have fired more rounds of ammunition than Ukrainians have been able to fire recently. In the Donetsk and Luhansk regions where the Russians have been for a decade, it's possible that the Russians will take more area, but that may not be indicative of the fight in other parts of Ukraine.
Mr. Courtney, let's broaden our lens here a little. United States has been the biggest financer of Ukraine's fight against, Ukraine's fight against Russia. In fact, if I could give you some figure here, so far the country has provided a total of $68 billion. I want to ask you, do you think there is fatigue setting in now? And how volatile is this commitment going to become in case Donald Trump is elected this November?
So, in fact, we don't really see signs of fatigue. There is some opposition among some of the more isolationist parts of the far left and the far right in the United States. But if there were a vote in the House of Representatives on the aid bill, most all Democrats would support it and probably half of Republicans. So the bill would easily pass in the Senate. The vote would be even stronger. And then in Europe, Europeans seem to be getting stronger in their support for Ukraine. So not only did the new $50 billion European Union package go through, but also we see other actions. So Denmark, for example, is providing all of its artillery to Ukraine. So there is no real fatigue in the West.
All right, Mr. Courtney, as we speak, the U.S. Congress is on a winter break as the vital aid to Ukraine, of course, hangs in balance. But so far, thank you so much for speaking to us here on WION and getting us all those insights.
You're welcome.